Hello, I'm Jan. I'm here in Germany in the Black Forest, and I try to tell you something about Bothmer Movement, what I discovered in the last 25, maybe 30 years about this subject or this movement. And it's pretty hard for me to do it in English. So please try to understand what I want to say, and maybe you don't just hear the words, but what I try to give to you. Last week, I showed you my large view from my skyscraper in the Black Forest, the only one in Freudenstadt. And this time I'm not there. I'm in the valley now. And so I can't give you that, but I want to continue with these words of Bothmer, where he told us 28, where he got to London with a school class and with Dr. Stein to make an to give some Bothmer there in the Steiner Hall, and there he got to this sea, this endless sea, for more or less an hour. You know, if you go to England and you have to cross the channel, you have more or less 1 hour, not watching any land. And this gave him a great impression of this. What's the being of this movement, of the reality of the movement is, of this what we call now Bothmer Movement. And I told you last week. And now I would like to continue there with this part. I have a blackboard there. I hope you can see it. It's big enough. And last week I did this on the blackboard from the Menschenkunde, from the common anthropology tree. And there is a sign in the 10th lesson, yeah, which means you have your head and it's closed, and the middle of your head is inside. So it's a whole Kugel, yeah, you know, a whole ball, something like a ball. You have your trunk, yeah, and this is just, Steiner says, just a part. It's like a moon, like a small part. And the main part of this, if you think it with the middle point is something like before, and this is just a part, like a moon if the sun shines from one part of it. So you just see a part of your trunk, and the main part is invisible. Yeah, it's so you have body and soul. He writes there, and he made another picture. And the big problem or the chance for us now is the limbs. These limbs, the arms and the legs, he says we normally can't understand, because the middle point of these limbs are the periphery. The middle point is the periphery. So it just turned around like our head. And normally we are not used to think it. We can't think just another way. Yeah, we do the Bothmer Movement if we are used to, and if we studied some years, we can do it, but we can't think it. And that's for projective geometry. It's a form of geometry now more or less 200 years old, found from mathematics. And they found this mathematic possibility of thinking, of geometry thinking, which goes a step on to Euclid. Euclid tells us if there are two parallels, they never will meet. Yeah. So he make as a space something like fixed up. They made an end for a space in our thinking. For the material, yeah, that's right. This has an end. It doesn't go on. Yeah. But for movement, or for thinking and for mathematics, you can think real mathematics. So the whole geometry, you can think coherent. I would tell it in German. If you deal with the endlessness, with the part which comes there and there without end. And that's pretty interesting. Maybe you got it already. If you have a line, can you see it?
Not so well.
Ah, I just take it with me. So you have a line, yeah? If I take a second line, you know, Euclid says there's no meeting point. If you have this point here, and then you have another line, they meet, yeah, they have a meeting point here. If you have a next line, there's a meeting point. So if you just move this line in this direction, the meeting point goes there, far off. If they are parallel, it's like an endlessness. So it's not, Euclid says they can't meet. But if you go on, then this point who went there comes from here again. Yeah? You can just think it. It's pretty easy. Yeah? And so you don't have to study mathematics for that, but it's very easy. And that's the way we do Bothmer. We try to do it, and normally we can do it, but we can't think it. And with this part of the lessons, of the 10th lesson from Steiner, we can at least try to think movement. And Bothmer told us one thing with the soul, how we can think it, and how the question is for him. He struggled about it, whether he can do this movement and this rhythm. Are they reality, or are they just thought from him? Oh, I do some exercises and they are good and I feel good and something like that. Or has there some relation to reality? And that's what he says. Therefore, we need a spiritual science. And he told in the words which he wrote to other people, he wrote that we are just at the beginning of the way. Yeah. And so I feel like that. And with the two exercises from last week, I would like to do with you to get a little bit to this point of what we can discover. This is the overextended high, you called it. I like the word warped high. This, yeah. Because the process which there is going on, this is the main point. I would like to invite you to look at this. The process, what I am as a human, how I stand in space before I do the exercise, and which process leads me on so that I get another human, that I do something like a step with this movement. And if this is a reality, I can do it, I can feel it, and I can think it. And that's what I try to discover with you. So just let's do 3 times the overextended high or warped high. And then I tell something about that. And afterwards, a second part, we do the overextended wide or warped wide. If you can try to do it in this way, so you can look, and maybe some of you wants to look at it for another, and wants to just do it themselves. You can try. Okay, and now I would like to invite you to feel a special point, not this small bird, which we were let from Casey, which is really nice because you're very gentle with this, but the way of feeling infinity. So if you watch with your fingertips to infinity at the beginning, if you watch to something like infinity at this point where you have the joke, yeah, and if you watch something like infinity, that's the hardest point, the second, here, yeah, not like that, but like this, to really to try to be something like there's a flow, yeah, and if you try to maintain this flow at these dead points, it's really hard, but just try it. And maybe if one wants to look, and the other wants to do it now, we can change a little bit. Could you feel it, and could you maybe see it a little bit? Yeah, this point and this point, they're really hard to get through, to get to this connection. Yeah, and if we get this connection, it's something like getting you're plugged in the cosmic forces. I feel something like that, and this name of warped, or you have many other words for this word, verzerrt. In England, you have a lot of words for that as well. And for me, it's not just a growing high, but it's mainly this point of going through where something is not normal, because people normally don't carry like that. Yeah, in last decades they did, but normally now they don't, but they still walk like that. And so I think that's the normal process we are in, and we can just get it. And what for me is the last days, I practice it and I prepared it. I got to this point, if we just practice this a long time and every time again, we can a little bit feel, maybe you felt a little bit, that we get through it, and that the point, the end point, the dead point, yeah, there I can't go on, yeah. And for the next exercise, there will be the same point. There is a point where we can't just go on the normal way. We have to resolve something. We have really to do a decision of our free will. And if you go in these forces, and if you think what the limbs, what the will of man is, then you can get another small step in getting another relationship to what will is, because it's not just this or this where I think. Normally we think that's my will, or something, oh, here's my will, but you can feel my will is something like in the space. Yeah, the reality of will, mainly the main part of the will, the main resource and reality of will is space, is a periphery. And that's a part of human. And you can discover it, you can think it, but you can also feel it. And if you practice this with these, especially the overextended high or warped high, and then you can shortly do some steps in this part. And now I would like to go to the next exercise, this what you call overextended wide. And it's in some ways just the way back. We now got a joke, yeah? And we resolved it like that, like under the shower, we resolved it. And you can, in Germany we call rutsch mir den Buckel runter, yeah? Just the problem, get there, yeah? And now we do just another.
Slide down my hump.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, now the next, yeah, 3 times. And maybe once you watch, once you do, and you change. Okay, thanks a lot. Yeah, and there's the same points you have. Yeah, you go something like that. It's 360 degrees. All of which wrote 180. Helena, I don't know why. Yeah, Bothmer writes 360 because you can go from this to that. Yeah, and then you have a dead point. And now you don't do the same the other way around, like with overextended high, but you get it that you bring this together. So it's something like a decision, a resolve, but it's more. It's something like a reality because you have to. And if this is really a reality, we can think with another possibility of thinking will, the nature of will. Yeah, is this really has something to do? And now we have the next, yeah, we have this down there, here, and there at that point. And now, what for me, even in the training, in the 3 years in Stuttgart, it was very interesting. If I press it, we were enforced, or we were invited to press here, really to get power in here. And then I felt something like anatomic, a light. It was like a power and getting me up. And that's something, it feels like coming to something which is like an animal, and which leads the way of animal, being an animal as human, to upright, to be able to be a man, a human again. And that's one process. And then there's, at the high, there's the next, yeah, there's an end. And now you have resolve something like that. You have to change direction of your hands. And then the small circle goes in the big circle again. And I feel something with this. There's this small circle with this animal, being an animal, something like that. That this gives something to the big circle, and the big circle itself gives something to the small circle. So there is something in between. That's a part where I still watch, where I still try to discover. Yeah. But that's the direction. I just try to tell you the direction I like to struggle, to ask, in some ways to do science. Yeah, because it's another way of science, and I think it's just the beginning, and we just have to lead on, and maybe we can combine each other. And we can I have together with Helena and Judy and Jamin, I did 3 pages of English-German translations, and I struggled for the words. And if you like to get it, then just write Casey, and she can give it to you, or you can write to me. You can write directly to me. Yeah, maybe I give you my email address for the people in the internet. Casey, you told it. It's yeah, Jan9880 at iCloud. Yeah, and that would be interesting. I will really like to do this work together with other people, and to ask and to go maybe different ways. And you can do it with anatomy, you can do it with projection geometry. I did a lot of work in my study, and a little bit after, with formalin, with lehm. If you form something like
plasticine,
yeah, the shoulder. Yeah, you can unmute yourself. I would like to speak together with you. Yeah, it would be nice if we can speak now, because I don't have just to to give, but you can ask, you can struggle together now, the last minutes.
Yeah, so unfortunately I can't unmute everybody in one go. So if you'd like to unmute yourselves, please do that with your own device. Carry on, Jan. You were continuing to say something about the plasticine, about molding it with clay or some kind of. Yeah,
I'm more or less finished with it. What's for me is a big struggle now is how we can get these beginning from Bothmer, how we can proceed with that. Because this book, yeah, from 89 and this book from 59, I think they need a continuation, and they need a process of being getting better. Mainly these pictures he made, yeah, to do this to give this to the world in a better quality, and because this cover, it was really fascinating how good he made this, how good he got this movements in drawings. I really like it. And this cover, I think, is the Verlag who made it.
The publisher, yeah.
The publisher, yeah. They really did it. They work on it, but just on these few parts. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of work now, and yeah, in these two directions to deepen it. On the one hand, we can do every time if we just learn more from the movements, from this reality, and if we can give it to each other, because I think we have to work together like a network, and to get new ideas, to see from the idea of another person how he gets in this reality, because then we have a new standpoint. Yeah. The last big boss, something like that, like Steiner or Bothmer, they could discover it more or less themselves, but they did just at the beginning. And now, 100 years later, we have to get these seeds, and we have to plant it, and really that it can grow and get leaves and get all this what's going on then. Yeah, that's my words, and thanks a lot for coming. Thanks a lot for joining and listening and looking and practicing. And if you like, we can work together. And I'm really glad with you, Casey, that you do all your work at the morning. And I struggle now for that, doing in Corona times this for my students in school. Yeah, I don't know, because I think they need it even much more, but maybe the parents as well. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Jan. I've taken the spotlight video off, so the person that's speaking is now visible on the screen. So Jan, you mentioned before that you're very happy to hear what people thought about the session and what questions came up. So let's open the floor for that. But thank you so much for bringing this a second time.
Okay. You're welcome.
You mentioned, you know, when we're at these stopped points and the circle, so with the lion or the extended widths, distorted widths, how when we press together, that it leads us up, perhaps, was your experience, if I understood you right. And I was just wondering about, you know, you talked about the limbs with the curve of the body being a part of this whole, and so that's invisible. The head is already enclosed, it has the complete. We talk about our, you know, our physical body, our etheric body, our astral body being the reverse with the head and the body. When we draw it, it's like a lemniscate. And And I was thinking about when you talked about this stoppered position in the distorted widths and this pressing together and it leading you up. And I wondered if it's somehow some way of connecting with our will being in the periphery. This relationship, this symbiotic relationship, but that we have to use this to find a way in this stopped position to come out. I'm very interested in how we activate our will. That we're almost going through life asleep. You know, can we harness our will? Are we all suffering, you know, with this lack of will? You know, we look for distraction. We don't get on with our work, you know. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, Charlie, I like what you wrote in the chat. The ego takes hold of the will found in the periphery in that moment where the two hands come together down at the bottom.
That's what spoke to me when Jan was saying those things. Yeah.
Yeah, lovely.
That's something very interesting. In this work with Helena, I looked for a word in English. It's gestaut, and I sometimes thought the word of Bothmer was not verzerrt, but gestaut. I had just see another. I thought in another way, and then I got to this idea of being gestaut. What I think, as you told.
Charlie wrote in the chat, compressed.
Yeah, that's it. I have found these stowed, congested, damped up, stoppered, or stamped. Yeah, and that was really interesting. How many words you have, how in which different ways you can speak what we just say gestaut or staudam. We have just one word, yeah. Like in Ireland, you have a lot of words for green, and in Iceland or in the north, you have a lot word for white. So you have a very different way of watching it. So you have many words, and these gestaut, it's something like a will. This is gestaut, yeah. There, the will is gestaut. And Charlie, if I understood you in the right way, then you told the bigger will outside here can come, can lift one up, yeah. And then the smaller will of man, this animal, this ego will, can get the connection to the bigger will.
Yeah.
Is it what you
I don't think I'd thought of it like that, but that's really interesting. Yeah.
Okay, that's one part of which I understood you, and which the idea which now I got in this dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is a form of dialogue I really like, because then we come further on. We can do steps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I like this, that you've got this outside circle and this inside circle, and then this relationship that comes about through doing the exercise, through being stopped.
Yeah.
That we have to find these things. We see it with children, don't we? That they have to push the boundaries to learn. If they don't push the boundaries, are they learning? You know,
Yeah.
we might find challenging children difficult, but it's how they're learning, and we kind of have to find a way to honour that, and in ourselves.
Tara, you were about to say something before. Can you share what you were thinking?
The emphasis for me feels like we have to change direction. When we are stuck, we can choose to carry on trying the same way, but we have to decide. Okay, I'll try something else. That really seems to me so clear in this exercise.
Yeah.
So so then, what would you say if you expanded on that moment at the bottom? What would you say helps to enable that decision to be made?
Well, that's what Charlie and Jan were saying. We're no longer able to access our kind of humanness. So it is the will. You're not quite sure. You're going to change direction with your will. Not quite sure if it's correct, but this strength can help you.
So it's almost like saying, I recognize that this doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
I recognize I need to change something. And just through the recognition of, I need to change or need to do something different, then the big will can lift us up. And kind of we go, I don't know how, but I want to change. And I'm asking for that help. And then maybe that's what helps us to rise up, rather than necessarily having a big plan of like, I'm going to change and I'm going to do this, 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 and this. It's more like, I'm going to change. I don't know what's happening. And then kind of giving over to that bigger will, perhaps.
Yeah, it's like a moment of surrender, isn't it? Okay, I surrender, this is not working. I surrender to this, and then allowing that surrender to bring you back up again into a different viewpoint. Yeah,
that's like what would happen if, you know how so we've gone down, so the infinity point has come down, we're down there in the depths, we've come together, and it's like really hard. What would happen if in that moment where we stop forcing it, we make that moment of surrender, we say internally, I want to make a change here, I'd like to change direction, and then this actually softens, and then it's kind of like a bubble that floats up and is kind of lifted and taken by the fact of letting go. Sometimes, you know, when you let go of, I think I have this in mountain biking. If I'm like really worried about what's going to happen, then of course I'm really tense, and then the whole thing just gets quite complicated. But then if I actually let go into it, it's like something else can carry me through it, and I become more fluid in the moment and less fearful, actually, because I'm sort of trusting. I'm a bit more trusting in that space. So I wonder if there's an element of similarity. As I'm saying it, it feels like, oh yeah, that is a possible truth. Yeah, thank you, Natalina. Wonderful. Have a lovely day.
Bye, Natalina. It's like when you can't find a word and you struggle to find that right word. You know it, but you don't. And then when you totally give up on it and let go, then the word comes back in. It's almost like you open your brain to see everything again.
Yeah,
but once
exactly.
you're looking, you're just not looking in the right direction.
Bye, Susan. Thank you. Cool. So should we leave it there for the recording? That was really, really fruitful and wonderful. Thank you very much, Jan, again for bringing this topic, and for everybody contributing your ideas. I'll finish the recording, and then we can stay on for a little longer and chat, but I'll just finish the recording here. Bye.